Hello, Scream Demons, and welcome to the Screams from the Basement podcast.
This is the scariest horror podcast on this side of the Black Lagoon. Screams from the Basement discusses the best double features that the genre has to offer.
We also interview the industry's finest that make our screams become nightmares. I am one of your creepy co-hosts. I'm Casey Kelderman.
And I'm Sam the Damned, and let's get screaming. Casey,
Yeah,
we have a special guest
special
on the show tonight. Very special. He's under... That came off wrong. God damn it. Like I said...
Cut that.
We fuck up, and then we bust each other's balls.
Yep.
No, we have a fellow Prescribed Films Network host on the show from Attack of the Killer podcast. We have Bryan Clark. Bryan, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll see if you regret it by the end of the show or not.
Oh, Bryan, there's nothing that you could do to make me regret having you on the show more than you probably regret having me on yours.
That's where we got to start with this, because we gave Bryan full control of what the topic of this episode would be.
He could have been
full
really
disclosure
mean.
to be mean to Sam for the torture that Sam put Bryan through on Attack of the Killer podcast, where you guys talked about what would you guys end up calling it? It was like teeny bopper.
Teeny bopper. Yeah,
teeny bopper slashers. Which, 1 out of 3 isn't bad. Bryan liked the Slumber Party Massacre remake, so...
Yeah, that's true. I did watch one movie that I enjoyed that I otherwise probably never would have given the time of day, so...
Hey, 1 out of 3 with Sam is not bad.
That was almost worth suffering through the other 2 for.
Well, we're not suffering on this one because you picked a banger double feature that's literally been on our list for a while.
When you asked me to come on, and of course, immediately the wheels started turning. What can I expose them to, induce them to watch? But then you showed me the list of titles that you had already had in the pipeline, and I mean, it was kind of hard to say no to this one because I love both of these movies. So,
yeah,
if you ever have me back again, then maybe I'll find something weird for you to watch.
I mean, we have to have you back. You have to have your revenge. Yeah.
Mostly because I need a reason to finally get around to all the movies that you talk about on Attack of the Killer podcast, where I'm like, what the fuck is that movie? I need to be able, I need homework to watch that on the show. So we need to have you back and watch something out there and outlandish that you throw our way. But the 2 movies that we're talking about today are somewhat outlandish and outrageous. At least one of them is very hard to find, and one of them is a John Carpenter classic that's a first-time watch for Sam. Sam, what are the 2 movies we're talking about today, though?
We're talking about Monster Dog from 1984 by Troll 2 director. I forget his name because it's not in my notes.
Claudio Fragasso.
Yeah,
Clyde Anderson.
Yes, under a pseudonym. And we are doing John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness from 1987, one of the classics that I have been putting off because I like to keep some John Carpenter movies to the side for special occasions, because he's honestly my favorite filmmaker. And we'll talk more on that later. So, Bryan, these 2 movies, you've picked them. I want to go back to you for a second, though, Bryan. Real quick, you're also an author. You're a writer.
I've been accused of such, yeah.
I have one of your books.
Oh, thank you.
The Beast from Haunted Cove. Excellent novelization of a schlock classic. You just came out with a new one.
Yes.
You did a novelization of The Killer Shrews. Is that correct?
I did, yep. So I've got those 3 books out. I've got the 2 novelizations, and I have a collection of original short stories.
Awesome. Where can people find that if they want to check out your work?
Amazon, unfortunately, or you can just find me on Facebook, and I have copies if you want me to scribble in one. And but yeah, they print on demand and they ship quick. So if you need a last minute Christmas present for the horror lover in your life, and they like monster movies, and who doesn't?
Hell yeah,
the Killer Shrews. And I got probably the best part, or my favorite part anyway, of that book isn't actually the part that I wrote, but I got an interview with Dr. Neil Woodman from the Smithsonian, who's a shrew specialist, and
Oh,
kind
damn.
of a fact or crap interview in the back of the book. And I was real happy that he said yes to that. When I just started Googling shrew specialists because I thought it would be fun to have an interview of that sort, and kind of figured, well, I'll start at the top and work my way down to the grad students who, don't don't have any compunction about ruining their reputation talking to some schlocky horror writer. But to my surprise, Dr. Woodman said yes, and he'd even seen the movie before, so he was happy to jump in with that. It was a lot of fun.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I would
that's
hope
awesome.
if you dedicated your entire career to shrews, you've seen the killer shrews.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
That's
Like
awesome.
there's not
So
many
cool.
other options for movies about shrews, so like
Yeah.
that's the one you have to go.
I mean,
with.
there's the remake / sequel that they got James Best to come back for, but it's not as good.
Follow-up question then. I mean, the reason we had this double feature on our list is because I'm a huge Alice Cooper fan, and I was like, okay, we got to do an Alice Cooper double feature, and what are the two movies he's best known for? It's not just because like that's literally like the only connection between these two movies. Otherwise, it's like why are we pairing these two movies together? Like one's about it's an Italian werewolf movie, and the other one's a John Carpenter like demon Catholic religion movie. Like they have nothing to do with each other is the point I'm trying to get to. But Brian, why this double feature out of the list of movies that we sent over to you?
Well, largely it was because I felt Monster Dog needed some defense, because I still don't know what you guys thought of it since you watched it. We haven't talked about it, but to my knowledge, myself and Justin Beam are the only people on the planet besides Alice Cooper who actually like that movie. So I do like to jump to the defense of maligned movies that I think need some love.
That is what this show is all about. So I love that. Yeah.
And this is one of those movies. I know we talked in our private chat about how to watch this movie. Sam and I both picked up what turned out to be an actual bootleg DVD of this movie.
It was
a
definitely
straight up
bootleg quality.
It was a straight up rip of the original VHS.
The DVD menu was ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Awful. It was so bad to watch it that way. But I know there's a who put out the Blu-ray release.
Kino,
it was Kino Lorber distributed the Scorpion release, because if you put the disc in, the Scorpion releasing logo comes up. But I got it through Kino Lorber because they do a lot of distro for them in Code Red.
Okay.
And I don't know if that's still in print or not, but I assume it is, because is Monster Dog going to sell out? Probably not.
Well, I looked it up afterwards, and it is out of print. You can
really?
Still buy copies of it, but I think used they're like $40-50.
Jeez, wow.
I might pull the trigger on it because we'll get into the actual plot, what this movie's even about. I liked this movie.
Yeah,
good,
and that's saying a lot for watching it in the quality that we watched this in, because it is horrendous. I didn't know. So the movie stars Alice Cooper. It's an Italian movie. He is dubbed over the entire movie. I didn't know that for the first 15 minutes because I thought it was just the terrible quality of this movie.
Oh, I got that it was a dub immediately, but yes, the DVD copy we watched it's
horrendous.
It was lacking in almost everything you're looking for in an audiovisual presentation.
Yeah.
I had to turn my TV volume up to like 50, which is unheard of.
Well, like all Italian movies of this vintage and earlier, it was shot without sync sound. So they go back and ADR everything later. And, they had the money to get Alice Cooper to show up on screen, but they didn't necessarily have the money to get him to come back. It was a lot cheaper just to have some random schmo dub his dialogue.
It's so funny.
But hey, the thing is, well, let's jump into the plot and then we'll talk about it, because the movie opens with my first point that I was about to make, though. So again, directed by Claudio Fregosi, who was going under the pseudonym Clyde Anderson in this movie. Written by Fregosi, and his wife is also like credited as not credited, but she's a ghostwriter on this movie as well.
Rosella Drudy, yeah, they worked together on all the writing that he did, pretty much.
So the plot of Monster Dog is from the director of Troll 2 comes Alice Cooper's first leading role as he plays a famed musician, something not out of the realm of possibility for Alice Cooper to play, who returns to his hometown that it's inhabited by crazed dogs and a monster werewolf doggy thing. And that is Monster Dog from 1984.
You missed the whole part where it turns into a Western for like 40 minutes. It's amazing. Yeah. Monster Dog.
Monster Dog. My first point was Alice Cooper. We talked about it. He's dubbed over the entire thing, besides 2 Alice Cooper original songs that are in this. And we start off with the first song, Identity Crisis. I want to talk about this song.
Most famous of the 2 songs. If you're in Messenger, you can look up, like, there's GIFs of it everywhere.
It's easily the most all the like episode artwork that I have for this is from that from that scene. I don't like this song. This song's not very good. I don't know what you guys think about Identity Crisis. It's a bad song.
Not only is it a bad song, the grammatical error in it drives me up the fucking wall. Identity Crises. I mean, I get it's a rock song and you need the lyrics to match the cadence, but god damn it.
Oh yeah, it's pretty abysmal. This is the point where I was turning my volume up on my TV to like 50 just because I couldn't hear the fucking song. And then I started hearing it and I'm like, should I turn my TV back down? It's my least favorite part of the movie.
Yeah.
Everything after that I really liked.
It's kind of a fun music video though. Like the actual music video part of it's pretty fun. The song is terrible. To see
it in color.
Oh, is your copy so badly washed out you can hardly even distinguish the colors?
It was pretty washed. It was pretty washed. I'm looking forward to seeing this on the HD transfer.
There was you can tell it's transferred from the VHS because there's a little bit of black on the bottom with a little wave, from the VHS transfer still on it. But there's like a little black underneath what's happening on screen. It's a bootleg version of this movie from the VHS. But yeah, I think again, the only note I had on this song was it doesn't even fucking rhyme. It doesn't. I don't know what's going on here. Like the music video, like I said, the visuals are fun. He's playing all these different characters. What is he? He's Jack the Ripper.
Sherlock Holmes, Billy the Kid. What am I'm missing one because there's 4 of them. James Bond, that's the other one.
Yep.
And I mean, the song is bad. It's not famous because everyone was like, "Oh yeah, this is a banger Alice Cooper song." No, and the videos that it's just so silly. That's what people remember. But it's unfortunate that the corniness of this song puts it so much to the fore because the other song, "See Me in the Mirror," I actually really like that tune. It doesn't necessarily sound like an Alice Cooper song. It's got more of like an 80s synth pop vibe to it. But I think it's actually a pretty cool tune. It's kind of atmospheric and a little creepy, and it probably helps. The visuals in the video they're shooting for that one are kind of spooky too. But
yeah, that whole music video sequence for "See Me in the Mirror" is just that's really like where this movie comes alive during that scene where it's like all the editing together, like what you're seeing, like the build up to the like reveal at the big literal smash cut at the end of the scene. Just fantastic.
It's funny that the 2 times we've had Attack of the Killer podcast hosts on here, we've talked about movies that feature multiple music videos in them.
Oh yeah,
because we had Mike talking about Bad Channels, which that for me is my favorite part of that movie. I think the "See Me in the Mirror" is my favorite scene of Monster Dog. I think it's a really good Alice Cooper song and a fun music video thrown in here. It's probably, at least for the terrible VHS transfer that we watched, it's the most visually appealing scene of the movie. That's for sure. Yeah,
maybe, but there's another scene we'll get to that I don't know. I love.
Well, then I'm I was just going to say, I'm going to throw it to Brian for a second, because obviously this was the first time watch for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
Brian, what was the first time you watched Monster Dog? Do you remember the first
Oh,
time
yeah.
you watched this movie?
So I have kind of a history of this movie going back to very early childhood, and Premiere Video, our old local video rental place. So whenever we'd go in there, and I was little, of course, my parents didn't let me rent horror movies, but I've always been captivated by monsters. So whenever we'd go to rent movies, Mom and Dad would go look for whatever they were going to get and send me off. And of course, instead of looking at the things that were appropriate for me, I would make a beeline to the horror section and just stand there and look at the images on the boxes. And, to the point where then they'd come find me like, what do you can't rent these. Why go? And then I just go grab the same Transformers tape I rented 50 times or whatever, Baby Secret of the Lost Legend or something like that. But there are a couple of movie covers that I remember distinct, like having nightmares about after seeing them in the store, and Monster Dog was one of them. I love the cover art. I love the poster for this movie. And so I never did get around to renting it. And by the time I was old enough to go and rent stuff on my own, and so I could watch that tape had somebody checked it out and never brought it back or whatever. And so for years it was very hard to see. It didn't really get transferred to DVD for a long time. And then back when Netflix was still getting movies in the mail, somebody finally put it out on DVD. So, and this is almost 20 years ago now. I find I get to watch this movie that I've had in my head that has given me nightmares just from the cover image. And so I sat down in the living room late at night. Everyone else had gone to bed, shut all the lights off. I'm like, I'm going to give this movie every chance to be what I dreamed it was as a kid. And it, partially it's because of that buildup I had, and partially because, when people talk about Italian movies, they talk about nightmare logic, that they feel like watching dreams. And this one really does, whether that is intentional or because Claudio Fragasso isn't a particularly competent director, is up to the individual, but it worked. Like when I sat down and finally saw this for the first time after so many years of having that image in my head, it lived up to it. I loved it. And I've watched it probably 5 or 6 times since then, and I love it. I mean, it's not like it terrifies me as an adult or anything, but it still just gets me in that kind of spooky vibe. So I love this flick.
What you just described was my experience with, this is going to be crazy. This is the Roland Emmerich Godzilla movie. Was that for me? I didn't watch that until I think like last year.
Oh.
And it was like, I cannot look, I'm not going to defend the quality of that movie. But like the buildup was so much, because like that was a movie that was coming out when I was like 5 or 6 years old. My parents would just
way to make me feel old.
Like my parents just, they weren't they weren't movie people in general. And so it was just that, like, I watched it as a 30-year-old adult, and I was like, okay, this is bad, but it also makes me so giddy that I'm finally watching this movie.
And I've mellowed on it a lot. I still hate that movie, and I don't think there's really much of anything good about it. But
it's a terrible Godzilla movie.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of just a terrible monster movie. But there's some neat practical effects in it, and I've kind of come around to the idea that to a lot of people from the generation behind me, younger than me, that was their first Godzilla movie. That maybe has gotten a lot of people into Godzilla. So, I mean, I can't fault it for that, I guess.
Yeah.
Do we think a lot of people got into werewolf movies because of Monster Dog?
I doubt it.
So again, you were talking about the dream logic of it, and it definitely has that Italian dream logic through it. I think it's a case of Claudio Fragosi's just not a very good director, and he's trying to make American movies. Big American star Alice Cooper is in this movie, and I think he's trying to capitalize on that with a werewolf movie, but it is just kind of all over the place and crazy and weird. I think that's to the benefit of the movie. I mean, I love the guy. Troll 2 is my favorite bad movie of all time. I think he makes highly entertaining movies that are usually on that level of so bad it's good. I wouldn't say Monster Dog is so bad it's good. I think it's just it's a weird movie that's good. Yeah.
Well, and you're talking about the capitalizing on the big star, and that's kind of an interesting. Do you guys know how this all kind of came together? About Cooper being in the movie and that?
Yeah, I'll let you explain it. Yeah.
All right. So Cooper had just gotten sober, and he went to his agent and said, "I need to do something to prove to myself that I can work sober." And doing a rock tour isn't really that. Like, I need something where I'm set to a schedule, and I have got to be up and at the set at 7 a.m. every day, and no lines, and be professional. He said, "So go find me a movie." And at the same time, Fragasso had just made a deal with I think he said, because I was watching the interviews on the Blu-ray. There's like a 45-minute making of documentary that this like Dutch, American, Italian kind of shady weirdo producer guy just popped up out of nowhere and said, "Hey, I'll give you X amount of money to make a movie." And so Fragasso and his regular producing partners like, we could probably make 2 movies with what they're offering us. So they went to their money people and kind of explained what was going on. So they split it into 2. Darren Sarafian made a movie called The Falling, which is kind of a weird, it's like Alien 2 Sulla Terra, but less interesting. I don't know if you guys have seen that one either. It's a weird alien, Italian alien knockoff. But then, and then Fragasso had this script. I think it was originally called Lord of the Dogs or something like that, but they wanted to make a werewolf movie that he and his wife Rosella had written. And so Cooper's agent just happened to, like, this was the first thing that popped up essentially, and Cooper loves monster movies. So he's like, "Well, that's perfect. Great. We'll go there." And then when they found out they were getting Alice Cooper, they were like, "Oh, we should rewrite the script to make the head guy a rock star." And it kind of went from there. And it's interesting, awesome, Sam, that you mentioned the movie turning into a Western for like the middle chunk of it. Fragasso said that he's always wanted to make a Western because, like the Sergio Martino and this, the big spaghetti Western movement.
Oh, yeah.
But he never had the money to make one because they're apparently, well, I suppose with all the horses and stuntmen and stuff, they're more expensive than a movie like this would be.
Yeah.
And they shot this in Spain to make, well, they claim that where they shot it looks a lot more like America, and to someone like me who watches a lot of Spanish horror, it's like, no, that just fucking looks like Spain, but whatever. But anyway, so yeah, that Western thing is very much intentional because he was like, "Ooh, it looks like I can get away with some of that here," basically, kind of sneaking it in the back door.
Oh, you can tell, like, I mean, from the minute the bounty hunters show up on the doorstep in this, it's like the whole vibe shifts for the middle chunk of this, and I love it. I am, like, I think one of the things that surprises most people is like how big of a Western fan I am. I love the genre, and it's not like I watched it a bunch, but like I will go through phases where I'll just binge watch like 10 Westerns in a row. And yeah, I don't know. The middle chunk of this movie was entirely my shit. I loved it. The shootout on the roof is like probably my favorite scene in this whole movie. And I think that visually it's pretty, like, I like all the wide angles. Like, I think Fragassi's, like, I think what chops he does have are on full display in that section of the movie. I really liked it. So.
Yeah, there's some genuinely really good atmosphere in this movie. I mean, anyone can make a fog machine look cool, right? And that helps cover a lot of sins, but it works. It's a neat flick.
I want to say the vibe of this movie is really what puts it over. I mean, one, you have Alice Cooper. He's playing a version of Alice Cooper. He's a rock star. Vince Raven is the character's name. Like,
who drives his own tour bus for some reason.
He's trying to make it. Like, well, he already made it, I guess. Like,
he already made it, and he's driving his own tour bus. I'm like,
his own tour bus. This is like a little,
it's like a van. He's still touring in a van. I'm like, Vince, you're a big name now. You could get a bus. You could get a driver. You don't have to drive your own band around in a 15-passenger van. I don't even think it's 15-passenger.
Oh, no. Definitely
Where's
not.
the
There's
equipment?
Like 7 people. Logic, Sam. We don't need it. Well, he's going back to his hometown, and like I'm trying. Okay, Brian, maybe you can help me understand. What is this hometown? Like, what is the
I
like
think it's supposed to be
story?
California.
Okay.
Somewhere, I think. I don't know. He goes back. I just know that he meets the sheriff, and they have a really weird conversation about him peeing on the sheriff's leg when he was a little kid.
Yeah. That I literally wrote in my notes, like, I kind of love the subversion where the sheriff pulls him over and you think it's going to be like some tough talking, and it's like, oh, the sheriff just knows him from childhood and is like, oh, I remember when you were a young lad, you're good, keep going. And I'm just like, oh, that's a different vibe than I'm used to in these movies from like the sheriff pulling over the rock band early on, you know.
Hey, they're busy chasing down all these dogs that are murdering people in their town. They don't got time to mess with the rock star.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm trying to look at my notes here. So they Alice Cooper like straight up runs over a dog at some point in this tour bus that he's in.
That part's rough.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys, I thought it was so funny though, because that like dead dog is clearly just a trained dog playing dead.
Yeah.
And it's kind of adorable.
What I find funny is right after they do that, this harbinger of doom just shows up.
Just right out of the woods, yeah.
Yeah, just shows up out of the woods. He's just there, like, and basically he's like, "Yeah, you're all doomed." Like that's. Yeah. I literally started laughing when that dude showed up. I'm like, okay, I know exactly who this guy is, but where did you come from?
You can't go home. It's got a dog curse.
He came from the woods, Casey.
He came from the woods, and that's where he lives, and that's all he does. Anyone that passes by, he's like the troll controlling a bridge. Like he has to, instead of some like riddle you have to solve, he's just going to give you some nonsense about the world ending or some doom bullshit.
Yeah, I love too when they like get to the house and you know you're starting to learn more stuff about like, oh, my dad was like shot because they thought he was a werewolf, and they talk about lycanthropy, and then like Alice Cooper finds the like book on werewolves.
Convenient
and like
thing to have around.
He opens it up and there's just a publicity still from the 41 Wolfman to the exact page he opens up, and I'm just like, yep. wearing your influences right on your sleeve there, aren't you? Because I mean, he's Lon Chaney in this. He's coming back to his, like, I mean, it's very Wolfman.
Yeah, in addition to that book, like, and how much I love the movie poster, I would love a copy of that family portrait that they have, that huge painting where it pans down and there's that creepy, like, skinless dog face hiding in the bushes.
Yeah, it's freaky.
Yeah, again, like the vibe of this movie, the movie just puts out this like really cool 80s gothic vibe to it that also, like Sam said, is a Western. Like there's not much else I can think of that's like this. And again, like adding Alice Cooper, I think so. Like if this was just any generic American actor that they hired to come over, I don't think we wouldn't be talking about this movie today. Two, like I think,
I mean, I still might, but I have brain damage, so.
Yeah, Brian would talk about it. We wouldn't. At least we wouldn't be talking about it with Prince of Darkness. Like there would be no connection then. But like I think Alice does add something to this movie of like, I mean, it feels very Alice Cooper throughout the entire movie.
Yeah. I mean, he's still got the charisma of a showman. You can't turn that off. Like he knows how to present himself, and so he commands your attention even when he's doing something silly.
Even when he's doing something silly and not his own voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you suppose, thinking of them coming home to that house and they first get inside and they go to the kitchen and there's nothing in the refrigerator but like 500 sandwiches? Do you guys suppose that they just took all the stuff from the catering table and like, just use this as props and then we'll have lunch?
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
That's probably where they had catering, and they're like, well, it's in the fridge for when we yell cut. Let's just bring it out now. Yeah, that is 100%, because you see how those sandwiches are cut. They're cut like little like little triangles. Like those are
Mhm.
100% catering sandwiches.
Yep. Speaking of just using your resources for production value, when they're shooting the "See You in the Mirror" music video and the dead guy's body gets thrown through the window and they stop rolling, I'm like, what are you doing? This is
Right.
adding production value to this very creepy video you're making. It's like, you have a gift, use it.
Hey, it's not the vibe that Vince Raven wants. Did you see that first music video? He's a goofy rock star. He's not a film someone dying rock star.
Yeah, that's true. I guess that
Yeah.
is kind of a Logan Paul move, isn't it?
Monster. I'm waiting for the Monster Dog remake now, starring Logan Paul as
I will not be watching that.
Vince Raven.
No.
Sam, you willed this into the universe. You said it.
I take it back. I've opened an Eldritch Terror now. I don't like it.
Let's talk about your Western part, Sam.
Yeah.
And specifically when these bounty hunters show up and they're after the monster dog.
Yeah. And they clearly think it's Alice Cooper. If it's not him yet, it will be. And I mean, all the people in this house that let him in, morons. I mean, come on. These guys, like, the minute they show up on screen, like, there's just a vibe of like, oh, these are bad dudes. And the fact that they get let in so easily, come on. You guys had one job. All Alice Cooper said to you before he left was, don't let anyone in. And you let in like 4 people with guns, clearly on the hunt for something.
Well, I mean, they had guns. Like,
yeah, but they let them in and then they use the guns against them. I'm like, I feel like we should have had something like a siege where they take the house by force from the outside. Like, we could have done a Western / Straw Dogs second act.
That would have been a lot cooler and probably also more expensive.
That's true.
yeah. They only had half the budget for this movie, Sam. They had to make a whole nother movie with the rest of it.
It's true. They had to cut the Straw Dogs vibes.
These are the guys who, in the Western, when they walk into the saloon, the piano stops playing and everyone ducks under the table. Like, they're very clearly villainous.
Yep.
I mean, the guy, the leader of the gang is literally just like, he's missing a tooth and he's always sneering. And I'm like, that whole guy's vibe is just like, he's just off-putting. I'm like, why is he missing that? Well, I mean, it's a Western. Everybody's missing a few teeth. But I don't know. That guy just, he gives bad vibes. And I don't know. I guess I'm hammering this point home. I just wouldn't have let him into my house.
Okay, I gotta ask Bryan this because, like, I couldn't see shit with the werewolf stuff. How are the effects in this movie? Because I'm not even gonna comment on it because I couldn't see anything watching this movie.
You don't get to see it very much, even in, like, it's just a few frames here and a few frames there. And so when they went to the special effects guy and told him what they wanted, they said, we want something that looks prehistoric, like it's a dog but it's huge, maybe it's a little bear-like, and it doesn't look like the skinless hellhound thing on the cover art, that's for sure. But I think in sitting just still as a design, as a creature, it's kind of neat looking. But they said when they went to see it for the first time and the effects guy had finished, he's like, come I'll show you. And he whips the cover off it very dramatically, and it's this huge bulking thing, and they're like, oh, that's really cool, it looks great. And he's like, now watch, I can make it do a bunch of different movements. And he pulls the first lever and the thing fell apart on the floor, and they went, fuck.
Oh no.
So that's what, much like the shark in Jaws, the monster didn't work very well, so they just had to kind of hide it and do what they could with it. But that probably makes it more effective. I mean, me being me, I would always like to see more of the monster. I just, give me all the monster. But for the good of the movie, I think it probably worked out for the best that they had to keep it in shadow and just show it in these brief little flashes. Um, could you see very well the transformation at the end? I thought that looked decent for how
Yeah,
what little resources they had to work with.
I was about to say that the transformation at the end was really the only time I felt like I could really, like, appreciate the full
Yeah.
design of the creature, and
Actually,
it did.
watching that
Yeah,
on a washed out bootleg probably made it look better. So you
it
had to
was
imagine
impressive.
more. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I love low budget monster effects just in general.
Mhm.
So this kind of thing is like right up my alley. I do wish we got more of the monster dog, but I
Yeah.
think what we do get is pretty cool, and especially in that last act, pretty effective.
From the glimpses you get of it, it's got these huge eyes, and it when you see it clearly in the high def transfer, it the eyes look like they have some depth to them. Like they weren't just a
Mm,
sheet of plastic. They're more like glass, like taxidermy eyes. So they have
damn.
like the
Okay.
clear on the outside, and then they've got the kind of the red behind. So it looks like it looks like they're more realistic eyes, I guess. That's the part that always draws my attention. Like I'm always trying to get a good glimpse of it to see really what it looks like, because there really aren't even that many good stills of it out there, because it's seen so briefly and always in motion in the movie. It's
Mhm.
hard to get a not blurry, completely clear shot of it. But it's always the eyes that draw my attention when I'm watching this movie.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Do you guys have any final thoughts on Monster Dog before we move on to our next Alice Cooper movie?
I'm just really glad you guys liked it. That was, I mean, the legions are growing. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, like, Italian horror in general, like, I mean, just foreign horror and, like, international horror in general, I
Mm,
should say, very much like a blind spot that I have been slowly chipping away at in these past few years, and,
okay.
so I don't know, I love the vibe of these types of movies. I I find the bad dubs charming in a lot of these. There's just something,
It's part of the
like,
experience.
yeah, like, it
Yeah.
kinda adds a levity to it, a little bit of a goofiness, and I like that. The dubbing on the crying at the end got me so good, like, I love that. Um, yeah, I actually I really dug this. I think if we weren't doing this, like, pairing this with like, another Alice Cooper movie, I would either pair this with Sundown, the Vampire in Retreat, or honestly, like a Near Dark or something like that. Um, kinda, like, maybe even Near Dark would be better because I feel like Near Dark has kind of the same Western flavor that this one does without really being a Western, I
Mhm.
guess. I don't know. Yeah, yeah, Monster Dog was 100% a win, and I'm so glad that you picked it for this show.
This reminds me of the first time I watched Tenebrae, and I watched some shitty rip of it on YouTube. And I'm pretty sure again it was probably the VHS rip put
Mhm.
onto to YouTube. And I was like, God, I love this movie. Can't wait to watch it like it's meant to be seen. And that's how I felt watching Monster Dog. Of like, I dig this a lot. I wish I could see more of it. Yeah, I dug this a lot. Like this movie is a ton of fun. Like the vibe it puts out, it feels like a movie I put on like towards Halloween season. Like
Oh, yeah.
if you're having friends over and it's like, all right, what are we putting on? What are we in the mood for? And someone's like, a werewolf movie. Well, have you seen Monster Dog? You pop this on, and I mean, this is a party movie for sure.
Yeah.
Like people are gonna
Mhm.
have fun with it. You're gonna have fun with the monster. You're gonna have fun with Alice Cooper. You're gonna have sort of fun with a terrible music video, at least in the beginning. Uh, See Me in the Mirror is a fun. It's a fun Alice Cooper song, and a fun music video too. So I think that again, it's probably my favorite part. But I feel like in a rewatch of this, I'm gonna enjoy the actual monster dog parts a
I would
lot
be.
more.
I've never looked up to see. Thinking of the songs one more time. I assume they wound up on a Cooper record. at some point. They were both written for this movie, and they were recorded in Madrid as demo versions. And apparently they were going to go back and like, get a more fully fleshed out version for the movie, but the producer was like, "Yeah, we don't have time for that. So they stuck the demo versions in the movie, which is maybe contributes to why they sound a little rinky dink."
Okay. The fact that it's a demo makes me it reshapes how I feel about that opening song, because a lot of what I think I was like going kind of like, what on is the production value of it just
Yeah.
was not like up to par with what I'm used to from Alice Cooper.
Yeah, they
So the
sound kind
fact
of
that,
thin. They don't
yeah,
go quite as hard as a Cooper song normally would.
yeah, okay. That's very interesting and very, very low budget.
hmm Too expensive to get different versions. Let's just listen to these.
I thought I saw this one on a. Yeah, it is. So, "See Me in the Mirror" did get an official release in
Okay.
1999. The Life and Crimes of Alice Cooper.
Oh wow! So it took them a long time to go back to that one.
So
Yeah,
took him
crazy.
a long time. So this is like his compilation CD that he put out. So as far as I know, the other song has not been released. That's probably okay. That's probably okay. All right. Well, that was Monster Dog first, the first movie in our Alice Cooper double feature. But before we get to Prince of Darkness, we'll take a quick little ad break here and hear from our friends at Fangoria. So, Fangoria, for over 40 years, has been the leading source for all things horror. The famed magazine is back with a vengeance every quarter with new in-depth discussions on the best contemporary horror, sci-fi, and macabre. You can use our affiliate link to save 20% on your annual subscription to the magazine or on back issues or the latest Fango merch. Visit shop.fangoria.com/screams from the basement. That's shop.fangoria.com/screams from the basement and use promo code screams from the basement at checkout, again, to save 20%. So thank you to Fangoria. And without further ado, let's get to our second movie in our Alice Cooper double feature. Sam, what's that movie?
This movie is another John Carpenter masterpiece. We're talking Prince of Darkness from 1987.
Prince
You guys,
of Darkness.
This movie blew my mind right out my butthole. Oh my God. This was a first time watch for me. What is your guys' history with Prince of Darkness? Brian, when's the first time you've seen this wonderful little film?
I mean, this one I don't have any particularly special relationship with. I just saw it on Monster Vision on TNT back in the day for the first time.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I picked up, mine is a newer watch for me on Prince of Darkness. I picked up the Scream Factory version of this movie alongside In the Mouth of Madness, and I watched them like back to back one night because I picked them both up at the same time, and they were two Carpenter movies I had not watched yet. That was probably not the way to watch it because I love In the Mouth of Madness, and I was like, just the vibe was completely different on Prince of Darkness, and I'm like, this one doesn't do it as much for me compared to other Carpenters. But I'm glad we got a chance to rewatch it for this, because this is like maybe the most ambitious Carpenter movie. I don't think necessarily in terms of scale, like something like Big Trouble or The Thing or Escape from New York, but like in terms of story, this might be the most ambitious Carpenter movie. Yeah. But Sam, I'm going to ask you, because this is your first time watching it, and you mentioned there's a handful of Carpenter movies like you're kind of keeping in your back pocket. What are the other ones you haven't watched yet that you need to at some point we're going to have to crack that John Carpenter case open and have you watch?
Yeah, so I have not watched a lot of his later filmography, which I'm aware that saving some of those is going to maybe be a bad call later down the road when
don't save The Ward for last.
Oh, I have seen that one, but that was
Okay,
because it came out when I was it was the only John Carpenter movie that I was able to actually go see in theaters.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not great. But I haven't watched In the Mouth of Madness. I haven't watched Memoirs of an Invisible Man, and I'm aware of the reputation that movie has. Do not care. I love me an Invisible Man movie. I'm very excited for it. I have not watched Starman, which that I'm just saving for a special occasion. I have the collector's edition Blu-ray from Scream Factory. I love Jeff Bridges. I love Karen Allen. That's going to be a cozy night where I just feel like having a nice little cry because I know it's his only Oscar nominated movie and it sounds sad as hell and I'm excited for it. I have not seen Assault on Precinct 13.
Oh, that's so fucking good.
I'm very excited
Love
for that.
movie.
And I just bought Dark Star. I just found a copy of Dark Star on DVD at Last Stop a few months back and picked that up. And I haven't watched that one yet either, but I'm very excited for Dark Star. This is one that I have in my digital collection, but he did a television movie in 1978 called Someone's Watching Me that I have not hit play on, but I've had because I picked it up on like a Voodoo $5 sale. Yeah. So there are a few that I haven't, and like I started Ghosts of Mars. I haven't finished Ghosts of Mars. That's maybe by choice. I really thought John Carpenter, sci-fi, Jason Statham, like I did not think that could go wrong. But kind of did. Oh, and Vampires. I haven't watched Vampires yet either.
I love that one. I mean, it's not among his classics, but it's a solid movie. That's the one that I interviewed him for Scream Magazine.
Oh, hell yeah.
And it was fun talking to him about that because I think that was the one he probably doesn't get asked about that much. And he didn't remember much about it because that was more of a hired gun thing. Like he got brought on as he wasn't the original director for it. But so much of it in the commentary talks about being influenced by old westerns, and a couple of John Wayne movies in particular. Rio Bravo is one, and drawing a blank on the other one. But I watched both of those before the interview, so I brought them up, and then we wound up talking more about John Wayne movies than we did about vampires.
I mean, that's the way to go with Carpenter. You have to meet him where his interests lie. Otherwise, those interviews just they don't go anywhere.
Yeah, Vampires rules. We'll find a way to get some of these other ones on the pod because I can't wait to talk about Vampires and In the Mouth of Madness with you. Ghosts of Mars. I don't know. We probably don't ever need to cover.
Oh, I'm gonna finish it one day.
One day.
Before I die, I will have watched every John Carpenter movie. I just am spacing them out because I love them, and
there are so few of them, really.
Yeah, really. Like, I mean, aside from that, like massive output he had in the 80s, he really doesn't direct much anymore. So it just, I haven't even watched the Suburban Screams episode that he directed. Because I'm like,
didn't he direct that like over Zoom while he was playing video games or
something?
Yeah, I don't know if you can really claim he directed that.
He was literally playing like the latest NBA 2K game while he was directing.
Have you seen his Masters of Horror episodes?
I have not.
Those are very good. Well, the I can't. Pro-Life is the second season one, and that's pretty good. It's got Ron Perlman in it, and like pre-Rob Zombie Halloween Scout Taylor Compton.
Okay.
But the first season one he did, Cigarette Burns, is like one of my favorite things that he did. Okay. Such a cool story.
Definitely checking that out.
I have one more question before we move on to Prince of Darkness. Have you watched Body Bags?
I have not watched Body Bags.
Okay, you have a lot to watch here. We're gonna have to go through some of these.
This is by design. Like, I was looking at my like John Carpenter's movies in my list, and it's pretty much I haven't seen it, or it's rated 4 stars or higher. Like, that's where I'm at with him. I don't know, and I rewatched so many. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've watched like Halloween, Christine, The Fog, The Thing. I watched that for the first time, like, I don't know, 4 years ago. I think I watched it during COVID and like for the first time. And I think I've probably watched that movie 20 times in the last 4 years. Like,
I dig the way you're doing this though. Like when you buy a real expensive bottle of bourbon, you don't just dump it in some Coke Zero and drink it all in a weekend. Like, you pour it
Yeah.
out a sip at a time and savor it, right?
Yeah,
Because there's only so much
exactly.
you're gonna get. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. And that's exactly how I'm treating Carpenter movies, because yeah, just every single one is a treat. And Prince of Darkness was like, holy shit, this movie, like I said, it blew my mind. When I was looking it up, it made sense that this movie was Carpenter kind of stepping away from the studio system and being like, "Nah, I'm gonna do my own thing." I talked a little bit earlier about how I'd been getting into like particularly Italian horror in the past couple of years. This to me feels very inspired by stuff like Fulci, like some of the middle parts of this, like the bugs, the scene out in the parking lot in particular. I'm like, this is like Argento level, like eerie. I don't know. There's some kind of like dream logic in this. I mean, some very like blatant dream logic in this too.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I don't know. I was vibing with this from start to finish. I could not take my like I never once it's a little longer for a Carpenter movie. Like at an hour 45, and I didn't once feel the urge to look at my phone, to check the time, to see how much time we had left. And honestly, by the end of the movie, I was like, "Oh my god, that's it!" Like,
Yeah, this
yeah,
movie is 100% a vibe. And I mean, okay, let's get into the plot first, and then we'll jump into the actual movie, because the vibiness of the movie is, for me, is like that first 15 minutes are. I could just put that first 15 minutes of the credits on in the background and on a loop and just constantly watch it. But
yeah,
the plot of Prince of Darkness from 1987, written directed by John Carpenter. Hell rises as a priest and a group of university students study a mysterious entrapment believed to be the devil himself, trapped beneath the Catholic Church. What a weird plot. What a weird plot for this movie. It's Carpenter tackling science versus religion, and doing it only the way only Carpenter could do it.
yeah.
And I mean, like I said, the opening 15 minutes of the movie where you have the credits going, and you have, this might be my favorite Carpenter score. The score of Prince of Darkness is incredible.
Okay, I think that's hilarious that you say that, because for the entire, and I'm aware that They Live came after this one, so like bear with me here. But I watched They Live before I watched this one. The whole time the opening credits were happening, I was like, this is literally almost like he mashed up his They Live and Christine scores. Like the Christine score from the Moochie Chase, there are literal motifs that he's reusing in the theme for Prince of Darkness. And Brian, I don't know how long you've been listening to this show, but I'm a massive Christine fan. It's something that I've brought up probably at least, I don't know, every 6 months on the show. Um, and so anything that evokes that, like that vibe, that Christine vibe, like I'm just in like crazy. And those like, I don't know,
Explains why
those,
Sam likes Halloween Ends.
it does. It 100% does.
I
I
like
love
Halloween
Halloween
Ends
Ends.
too.
Oh
Yeah.
my god! Well, I'm gonna get
Brian!
outnumbered on this.
I
Jeez.
love movies that subvert expectations, and especially when it's something from such a beloved and very locked into a certain mode institutional franchise, and
Yep.
go, nah, we're gonna do something. Like, my second favorite movie in the entire Halloween franchise after Carpenter's original is Rob Zombie's Part 2.
It's so
Okay.
good.
Yeah.
Part 2 rules. Yeah.
You got Casey back on that one.
Yeah.
Because it does things that you'd never think to do with Michael Myers, and it does them very well. But
Yeah.
we're not here to talk about Rob Zombie.
No.
No, we're talking about the OG Rob Zombie, John Carpenter. I don't know if that makes any sense, but hey, we're talking about someone that tours with Rob Zombie all the time, Alice
yeah,
Cooper.
okay.
There's our
Yeah.
full circle back to this. I want to talk about the Alice Cooper part of this for a second, because Alice plays like he's like the leader of these bums, and like these they're like zombie, like homeless zombies. Like
I
they
think
just
the idea is because they're street people that they're I don't want to say like unhoused people are mentally deficient, but maybe these particular group of people have, you know, some mental issues that make them more susceptible to control. And so the
Yeah.
force that's buried underneath this church is reached out because it's also controlling insects. It works kind of the same
yeah.
way, where it's grabbing the minds of things that it can subvert and use to its own power.
Yeah, it's almost more of a like the homeless people, the unhoused people are vulnerable and therefore, yeah, like a little
Yeah,
bit more
Yep.
vulnerable is a much
susceptible.
better way,
Yep.
much more sensitive way to put it than my stupid ass did. But yeah,
No, no,
that's
no,
I was
no.
trying to find the
getting
word
around to
too. I
the
was like,
same
yeah.
point. You know,
Yeah.
Well, I
I
mean,
hope I haven't said anything
they're
that'll
basically
feel
down
canceled.
to like their basic instincts as humans at that point of like
Yes, right.
survival, and then they're
Mhm.
easily susceptible to some sort of supernatural power that's in this. And Alice is the leader of them. And I want to talk about how Alice got in this movie, because there's a super fun story on how Alice ends up in this Carpenter movie. And it's basically that Alice is there visiting set for Prince of Darkness. It's already written, they're already shooting. Alice is there just because he's like, I want to see how they film the John Carpenter movie. He's a big fan of Carpenter, and vice versa. Carpenter is a fan of Alice. And there's a stage stunt that Alice does on stage, and it's what he pulls out in the first kill that Alice does, where he stabs the guy like through the chest with that like pole, and it
Yeah,
like
it's like a
comes
half a
out the
bite.
other end. Yeah, it comes out the other end, and Alice does that on stage. And basically, Carpenter was like, "Hey, Alice, like, you want to be in this movie? I don't really have a leader of these, the unhomed people. Like, you could be the leader. We'll get you in gear, but I need to incorporate your stage gag of stabbing someone through the chest." And that's how that ended up in the movie. I'm like, that's fascinating, because Alice, like, Brian, I don't know if you've ever seen Alice in concert.
I have, yeah.
Yeah, he puts on, I mean, still to this day, he puts on a hell of a show, and a complete showman filled with so many different special effects and gags that are almost magic tricks on stage. And I just love that Carpenter's like, let's take one of those magic tricks from your stage and make it a magic trick in this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of cool that they just used the exact same getup that that he used on stage for it. The homeless people right off the unhoused people right off the bat, just like there's a vibe that's just very apocalyptic from the get-go. Honestly, even before that, like this opening credit reel that just seems to take forever. Like
Yeah.
every time you think it's over, a new title card pops up.
But each clip of film between the title cards is setting the story up, and
Yeah.
purely in images, and done in such a masterful way. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so good.
It's like it's so dread-inducing. Just right off the gate, you have that gorgeous shot of the crescent moon over the sun, like the horned god. Like,
Mhm.
oh, that is just, and I read that I think that's a matte painting. I'm pretty like I mean, obviously there had to be some trickery because the moon and the sun don't just do that. But I love that shot. I love all the shots of like the nighttime sky. There's one in that where it's like it's focused on the moon and then it refocuses on the leaves in front of the moon. And the moon goes blurry, and it's just such a beautiful shot. Like this is maybe I know this is saying a lot, but this might be my favorite film of Carpenter's visually.
Mm.
Like I think visually this is a masterpiece. There is one shot at the end of this movie, the right after they break the mirror, that I think is the most bone-chilling thing that he has ever put to camera. My guts dropped when that scene happened. I was like, I can't believe that, just like, oh, that hit. That hit. This movie is gorgeous. I don't know. Sorry.
It
I
is
went off on a
gorgeous.
tangent.
No,
I love the cast of this movie. Carpenter knows how to put together a massive cast, and
Mhm.
I mean, we're led by Donald Pleasance, who plays Father Loomis. A little straight up wink and nod to his own character.
There's one thing you can count on. It's Carpenter is very lazy with his character names.
Character names, yeah.
Yeah.
And again, wears his influences on his sleeve. Victor Wong is also incredible in this movie. I love the chemistry between Pleasance and Victor Wong in this movie. They have impeccable chemistry between the two of them, and then you have all the college students as well. The funny thing I wrote down here is I was trying to like figure out a way to describe like the tank that all these all these university students are studying in the basement of this church. And I was like, looks like Zordon's tank from Power Rangers, but with like green goo going through it. That's what I can think of. It looks like when the Power Rangers talk to Zordon, it looks like that, but with like green. Even again, I don't know how to describe the green stuff. It's hard to describe.
Yeah, it's very like this feels very
otherworldly.
Yeah, it's like it's very Lovecraft and cosmic in a lot of ways. Also, can we talk for 1 minute about the one half of the Simon and Simon duo? Jameson Parker as Brian Marsh. The minute he popped up on screen, I'm like, Tom Atkins aged out of the role. Like 1 for 1, that mustache, like he is a Tom Atkins stand-in, like 100%.
Disagree. Tom Atkins' mustache blows that guy's mustache out of the water.
Oh no, that guy's mustache was glorious.
It's a bad mustache.
It's not a bad mustache. I'm not gonna lie, his IMDb photo doesn't have the mustache, and he loses a lot of. He loses the verve, I guess.
It's
that
no
mustache
Tom Atkins
is doing
mustache.
a lot of work.
Brian, you're gonna have to help settle this. What mustache or no mustache on this guy?
Tom Atkins' mustache could beat this guy up.
Yeah,
not beat up his mustache, beat up the guy.
I agree with that. I'm just, look, I have a Tom Atkins action figure, like literally right behind me. I was trying to find it. I rearranged. I love Tom Atkins.
Figure mustache is better than this guy's mustache.
Well, that's because this is NECA and incredibly sculpted.
It is incredible, of an incredible man, Tom Atkins.
Yeah.
I find that guy, okay, that's one thing. I find some of the university students a little boring, a little bland in this movie. That guy especially. I'm sorry, Sam. I know you like mustache guy. He's kind of bland for me.
They're not great, but they're serviceable. Yeah. But when you have a bunch of competent jobbing actors surrounded by Donald Pleasance, Charles Cyphers, and Victor Wong, they're gonna look bad. Okay, you can't stand up to that kind of power.
Well, and what I like about this movie is they don't feel like characters, which I could see that being taken as a negative, but like to me it feels like they're just very real people that are all just there under circumstances. Like none of their performances are flashy, none of them are. I'd say like the one that probably is the most like this feels like a performance is Dennis Dunn, especially in the third act when he's like trapped in the closet and yelling for like most of the last half of this.
He's my favorite university student though, like by far.
Well, because he actually pops. Yeah. Whereas the rest of these people are literally just like people going about their Monday. Like that's kind of what I love about this is like you're just kind of vibing. You're like something spooky's happening. Something's very off. All of these people are just treating it like, oh God, I have to do this stupid assignment for my professor so that I can graduate. And then shit just hits the fan. And all of like, I don't know. There was something about the mundanity of this particular cast of characters set against how like fucked up this movie gets that I don't know. I appreciated. I don't think you need like a McCready or anything like that in this movie,
That's my one negative. Okay, I'm just gonna bring it up here because that is my biggest negative, and I was literally just gonna compare it to The Thing of like characters all in one single location doing
The
something
vibe is
mundane.
very similar.
Yeah, doing something mundane like science. Like science is boring, right, guys? Science is boring. But like they're doing like assignment. One of them's they're at work, and then these are university students studying something like in normal life is mundane work. But like The Thing, everyone pops in that movie. Everyone stands out. Here, there's like three
Here
people,
they don't
and
need
it's
to.
only one of the students.
Well,
I disagree.
they're doing science in The Thing too. It is a research outpost, but the type of person who is going to man an Arctic research outpost is whether they're a scientist or not is going to be a little more rough and ready than some grad students.
Yeah.
So this is and the person that the script is credited to, Martin Quatermass, is in itself a nod. Have you guys seen or read any Quatermass?
No, but I did read up on this on John Carpenter. Like in the press materials, he apparently created a whole bio for this
for Martin
pseudonym.
Quatermass.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the Quatermass movies, and this one is probably the closest to Quatermass in the Pit, which is the third of the Hammer movies, and the one with Andrew Keir, the one that's generally considered the best of the bunch, and I would agree with that. But in that, they find a Martian spaceship with a carcass still inside, and they're linking these things to earthly myths of the devil. And so this is Carpenter's Quatermass movie. He just, very openly says that, even in the credits of the movie. And so the lack of having a MacReady type action guy makes sense because they're not fighting an alien or a monster or something that's purely physical. They're fighting something so confounding that a secret order in the Catholic Church that operates outside of even the jurisdiction of the Pope was set up thousands of years ago to deal with the possibility that this thing could have a resurgence. And when it finally does, the one guy who's left in charge is so freaked out that even as a clergyman, he has to turn to a theoretical physicist who is sort of his friendly nemesis in the press and say, look, man, God doesn't even have the answers. I need your help. And so they have to battle this threat with intellect because you can't punch a liquid devil that can mind control bugs and some people,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like that's a good way of putting it. That's better than what I
See, I love the procedural part where they're just sitting there doing math at the canister because I just, like, one of my probably actually is my absolute favorite science fiction movie is Phase 4. Which actually there are bits of this that remind me of when you see the ants swarming in the computer at the beginning, because Phase 4 is all about this weird outer space event of supernova. It's something, it doesn't really matter what, that supercharges the intelligence of ants on Earth. And the whole movie is these three people trapped in a geodesic dome doing math at the ants. And you wouldn't think that would be interesting, but it's absolutely captivating. And this movie has kind of the same vibe as that up into a point, and then you get the part with Alice Cooper stabbing a guy with a bicycle and it turns back into a John Carpenter movie. But I love this flick. I think, and I said this to you guys in our chat, that this is probably his most underrated classic movie. I mean, people aren't going to rate The Ward or Ghost of Mars very highly, and they don't deserve it. But I think this one gets overlooked a lot because it is slow and because it is very much more a vibe than it is a bunch of snappy dialogue and action.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people just, when they want to watch a John Carpenter movie, they're not expecting something that requires a lot of patience and a lot of thought. Mm-hmm. And this one definitely requires both.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree with that. of the ones that I've seen, I feel like this is the one that's probably talked about the least, um, which is crazy to me. But I also feel like it might be, I don't know. It's very hard. I've rated like so many of Carpenter's things 5 stars, and this one, full disclosure, is another 5-star one. But it's hard for me to even pick like a top 3 of Carpenter. It changes by the hour, but this is a contender. There's nothing that he has done that is quite like this. Like it's so clear that he took like the kind of what he deemed like studio failures, and what were studio failures at the time, that have since grown in acclaim. But it's so clear that he took that and went in a completely different direction. Like the third act of this movie, where people are getting possessed. Oh, by the way, I love that Satan's a squirter. I love that like Satan is just like in this little canister, and like someone comes up and he's just like, like he just spritzes them with his Satan juice. I'm like, that's hilarious. um, yeah, I don't know. Like by the time the third act gets around and you've got all these effects, you've got that scene in the parking lot where the guy gets like stabbed, and then he's covered in bugs, and then he just disintegrates into bugs.
Yeah.
Like I'm just that sequence, just I was like, what am I watching? Like this doesn't feel, to me, that didn't feel Carpenter like. Even I was like, where's he pulling from for this? I just this gave me stuff that I didn't think I'd ever see in a Carpenter film, honestly. Because like I know stuff like Halloween 3 that he wrote and had some kind of like creative say in, like kind of has weird stuff like that.
Well, and it's interesting you say that, because Halloween 3 was originally going to be written by Nigel Neal, who wrote the Quatermass movies.
That's, yeah. So this and Halloween 3 feel very like, feel very similar in that like kind of sci-fi horror mashup kind of way. Yeah. That makes so much sense. I have to seek out these Quatermass movies.
Yeah, they're very good. They're pretty easy to find. I would think they're streaming somewhere. Scream Factory put the 3 main ones out, and
Okay.
there's a TV movie he did. It's not a Quatermass thing, but it's of a similar vibe, called The Stone Tape. That's on Shudder right now.
Oh, okay. I have seen like I haven't watched it, but I've seen that on Shudder. I'll have to put that in my list. That's awesome.
So like we were talking a little bit about the themes of this, and again, that's not something like Carpenter is most known for. Of like, this is a heavy themed movie. It's not something Carpenter is always thought of. And the only other movie I can think of really is like that people talk about the thematics of is They Live.
Yeah.
And again, maybe that's why I prefer They Live, is because it still has the Carpenter vibe of like, it's still an action movie when it comes down to it, and it has thematic elements. This feels like that stripped down version of like, we're still going to do Carpenter. I mean, have a Carpenter score. It's completely dread inducing. We're going to have gross out effects in this. Like we said, just bugs falling out of a guy, and like green shit coming out of people's mouth, and they're like decaying, and it's so gross.
The fountain, but like the fountaining of the green fluid out of the eyes and mouth. I'm just like, oh, that's so gnarly. I love that.
It's so nasty. But like, again, Carpenter is dealing with heavier themes in this, of science versus religion, in a very apocalyptic way of like, neither one matter. Like, we're all gonna die in the end anyway. Like, it's so nihilistic. I love it. And again, you feel like you get a vibe for what Carpenter's worldview is a bit in this movie.
Oh,
that they find out all the answers, and it turns out that it doesn't. Yeah, there's nothing they can do. Like, oh, now you know how awful things are. Have fun.
Yeah.
Good luck. The world's ending anyway.
That to me just that I love nihilistic endings like that. Like I think that's one of the things that I love about They Live, is like that movie, that ending, just horrible. Like, good God, no hope, none whatsoever. And the same thing with this, like the fact that these are the two ones that he was able to do with that deal with, is it Alive Pictures? He had like a 4-movie deal and he only ended up doing 2 of them, and it was this one and They Live. But I can't think of the production company now. But like I love how these are kind of maybe like those 2 are maybe his most political movies. I'm inclined to say. Like I do think that The Thing has a little bit of that as well. I just
Save
think
that
that
pronunciation until you watch Assault on Precinct 13.
yeah, that's true. That's yeah,
'Cause
yeah.
there's some heavy stuff in that one
Yeah.
too.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that. Yeah, I don't know. I just the way this movie you're right. It's kind of just a hodgepodge of science and religion mumbo jumbo, and I don't know if any of it really like congeals. I was watching this with Maria, and there were multiple points in the movie where like a character would ask like, "What are we even doing here?" And she'd say something like, "I mean, I'm still trying to figure that out." And like, but I think by the end, that's the point. Like, what are they all doing? Like, what what good is any of this? Um, and they win at the end, but they don't win. Like when when is it? God dang it! When Catherine, I have to look up these people's names because I don't. The co-ed played by Lisa Blount, when she like sacrifices herself and dives through at the end, and then Pleasance comes in and just smashes the mirror with no thought, and there's that last shot that's just almost like a camera flash of like just pure darkness with her reaching to the mirror as the light goes out. What the fuck is that? Like, oh my God. I lost my shit, you guys. Like, I was like, oh, such a beautiful shot. And immediately, like, I was on the verge of tears. I'm like, just, just that nothingness. Just perfect. Perfect. I like the cosmic horror of that moment alone just cemented this
Well,
movie
and
as
the
like a
loneliness
5-star
of what,
banger.
like, she sacrificed herself, but it's not like she just jumped through and died. Like, she's experiencing that void while she's still conscious. And
Right.
that's,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I love a movie that leaves you feeling wrecked and miserable.
Yeah. And this one does. It's just that I mean the stinger too is good with, the
Mhm.
him reaching for the mirror and right before he touches it, you cut to black. Like I love that. But woof, the thing that stuck with me the most was easily that mirror shot. Like just wow. Wow. It just packed a punch.
See,
Incredible stuff.
my favorite mirror shot is like right before that, and it's when you see the devil's hand coming out of the mirror. Like it's a
Giant hand, yeah.
See,
giant red hand coming out. It looks so cool.
that's the one thing I wish they wouldn't have done. I feel like giving it even like having it be the canister of Ecto Cooler is what makes it so interesting and otherworldly. It isn't just Tim Curry from Legend, which is awesome. Don't get me wrong. I love Legend and I love Tim Curry as Lord Darkness, but
Right.
that type of overt, obvious devil imagery doesn't really fit with the more ethereal ideas going on in Prince of Darkness. So I wish they would have figured out some other way to, maybe she just sticks her hand in and just like, something's got me. And then, or just to work around something where you don't have to see it and you can continue to just imagine what this entity might be.
Yeah. I get that because it is a cool effect, but it doesn't necessarily fit the vibe of everything that's preceded it. Yeah.
That's why I like where it's only just the hand, because it's enough for us
Yeah.
to comprehend. But if they like showed like the entire devil, like maybe like reverse shot in the mirror or something like that, it'd
Yeah.
be a little hokey. I think
Yeah.
this is goofy enough to get the point across, and like we don't have to see the whole thing. The way they did that, I don't know. Brian and Sam, I don't know if you guys know how they shot the devil's hand coming out, if you saw anything on that, but it is kind of fascinating how they did it. So they took the mercury from like hydraulic fluid that they used on like one of the machinery that they had on set, and they basically drained all the mercury out of it and put it into like the base of the mirror, and like that's how they shot the hand coming out of it, so it looks like a mirror and something coming through like the liquid of the mirror, and then they had to put it all back.
Well, that's safe.
Yeah, very, very safe. Yeah, they use like fake hands to get the shot, but yeah, they use literally use mercury to get that shot. Is it worth it? I don't know. It looks cool.
Yeah, I mean it's effective, that's for sure.
Yeah, it looks cool. I don't know if it was necessarily worth
as long as nobody had to get it on them.
Yeah, mercury poisoning for someone on set.
But
go ahead.
We skipped over a little bit of the body horror portion of this, which is, you know, Dennis Dunn in the closet yelling and being helpless until he really needs to get out, and then he's able to bust out in 30 seconds. Minor things, minor quibbles. But the blonde co-ed that gets infected, I thought when her like whole body is domed the way it is, I thought for sure we were gonna get a birthing scene, and I was like very, very on edge about that. Like that, I mean, woof. Yeah. And then when it didn't go that way, but it, you know, obviously it goes another. That makeup is so disgusting.
Gnarly.
It's so nasty. And that's like the one image that like her face post, you know, getting completely possessed is the one image that I'd ever seen from this movie. Otherwise, like I knew next to nothing going into this. I kept it remarkably under wraps.
I love that it looks not like some kind of generic zombie makeup or whatever, but like she's covered with sores.
Yeah.
It's just,
it looks painful. It's like oh god,
decaying almost.
Yeah. It's gnarly. Like there's like pieces of skin just kind of hanging, and you're just like, whoa. Yeah. Incredible makeup work in this movie. 10 out of 10. This is a 5-star banger.
The thing that just gets under my skin throughout this whole movie is the dream sequences, and we end on one as well, of like the impending doom, all hope is lost ending of the movie. Yeah, those they feel very like early, like what internet horror is nowadays, like analog horror. It feels very early analog horror, and that's kind of weird
because it plays with that like kind of warped out digital, or but not digital, but like the videotape warping effect, kind of. And you
have like the impending doom of someone coming down this like alleyway in the darkness of like, oh, what's happening? It's all like,
well, she's coming out of the church doors, isn't she?
Yeah, coming out of the church. And it's a little like, it's kind of liminal in a way, like like very, very you know, the stuff like Skinamarink in the back rooms and the Outwaters. Like there's a little bit of that, like I feel like I'm not seeing everything of what I should be seeing right now. I love those sequences. Yeah.
And it's filmed like they use that, like the cinema camera, they shot the actual TV that it's playing on, so it has that like distorted feeling, like feels like we're separated from it, unlike the rest of the movie. It feels like we're very distant from it, and just creates this nasty eerie vibe, and kind of just leaves you feeling like, oh well, all hope is lost. Okay, cool, thanks John. Thanks JC.
Love that. Love a good, I'm like you, Brian. I love a good movie that just rips my fucking guts out and just like spits on my face and makes me thank it for it, you know, just
taking notes for when I come back.
Get ready,
I can oblige you.
I have two pieces of trivia just to throw out here before we get to our final thoughts. This one's purely just for me. Alice Cooper and John Carpenter met at WrestleMania 3, which I thought was pretty cool. I don't know what Carpenter's connection to WrestleMania 3 is, but
probably just thinks it's fun and watches. I don't know.
Yeah,
Let's just be thankful he got Alice Cooper and not like Hulk Hogan or Macho Man or somebody to be in this, because that would have changed a whole lot of the feeling of the movie.
Oh God, yeah.
I would have watched Macho Man as the houseless person. That's for sure. And then obviously the whole story is based on the classic line of the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist, and I mean that's the entire genesis of this entire movie. And I think that's it for the notes I had. Any other trivia or final thoughts you guys have on John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness?
No, I mean, I've gushed. I love this movie. I'm so glad that Bryan picked it.
Well, I mean, you guys already had it on your list. I just chose which episode to show up for.
Oh yeah, but you wouldn't believe how many times that we're like, hey, should we look at the list for a new episode? And then we just come up with a new episode anyways.
Oh, okay.
That list gets added to all that. I mean, there's like 100 different double features on it already, and we constantly add stuff to it. And this is probably like in that first 10 that we came up with.
Oh, damn. Yeah. Okay.
So no,
I'm glad I rescued it from obscurity then.
Yeah. Us too. This was such a fun double feature. I enjoyed both of these movies immensely. So. Any final thoughts for you on Prince of Darkness, Casey?
Oh.
Or Bryan.
I thought you were talking to me. I'm sorry.
No.
It had been a long time since I'd watched it, and I'm glad I had an excuse to go back to it, because I've always liked it. I mean, it's one of those, but it's not one like you were saying that you were just going to reach for They Live or The Thing or Escape from New York or something, because you want something a little more up. And sitting down and watching this again, I wouldn't say it made me reevaluate it, because I've always loved this one, but I appreciated it. Even it's one of those movies that every time you watch it, it gets a little better, because it's got a lot going on, and you pick out new things that you maybe didn't catch on a previous viewing, and it belongs in his pantheon of classics. It's definitely my top 5 favorite of his, maybe even top 3. I love this one.
Hell yeah.
I think I'm in the boat of like, it's not one I'm going to pull off the shelf all the time, but I'm going to grow to love more and more each time I watch it, because this is the second time I watched it, and it's growing on me a lot more every time, and it feels like I'm going to pick up on stuff every single time I watch it. But it's making me want to watch In the Mouth of Madness now, because I think Sam's going to be blown away by that one too, if you were blown away by this one.
I'm jealous that you have the Scream Factory Blu-ray.
We'll have to watch it sometime.
I'll trade you some VHSs for it. It is. It's still in print.
Yeah. We'll watch it sometime. We'll find a double feature to do within the Mouth of Madness. But Sam, what? Yeah, I was gonna say, Sam, if you're talking about the Lovecraft vibes of Prince of Darkness, wait till you watch In the Mouth of Madness.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that one literally like based on a Lovecraft story?
Not exactly, but it's definitely meant to be.
Like, I mean, it's a take on.
It's not subtle.
Okay. You mean it's not subtle like this one that has, a pseudonym of a screenwriter that literally.
Mm-hmm.
Or a giant red devil hand coming out of a mirror.
Yeah. Rad. Okay. Before we get to Doobie Doing, we have one more ad read. This is for Terp Boys. Are you looking for that extra buzz while watching the Texas Chainsaw Massacre? How about melting your mind while watching a David Cronenberg movie? Terp Boys Delta 8, 9, and THC gummies, vapes, chocolates, and more has you covered. This plant-based product is made from the purest organic hemp-based extracts and backed by third-party laboratories. You can visit buyturpboys.com/screamsfromthebasementpod and use promo code screamsfromthebasementpod at checkout to save 10% on your order. And they make you feel nice and relaxed. And it's wonderful. It's great.
I might have to avail myself of some of their goodies.
Yeah. It's good stuff.
And then pop on In the Mouth of Madness while chewing down on a Turquoise chocolate bar.
I definitely had a gummy before. I don't think I did before Prince of Darkness, but I definitely did before Monster Dog, and
I
like
could see that enhancing the experience a
it
little
was
bit.
it was fun. All right, now it's time for my favorite part of the show. Casey, I'm skipping over you. I'm going to our guest first on this one.
No.
Brian, what have you been doing lately?
Oh, well, I went to the surf ballroom, which I don't know if you guys know that place.
Yeah.
It's like 15 minutes from where I live in the
Hell
next
yeah.
town over. And we saw the Reverend Horton Heat, which was awesome.
Oh.
That was my fourth time seeing them. They always deliver. It was a
That's
fantastic
awesome.
show, and it was neat to see them where, place where I didn't have to drive 2 hours to see a concert, because that's kind of the bummer about living in the middle of nowhere, is it's hard to find interesting things to do without taking a road trip.
Yep.
But movie-wise, so I watched A Better Tomorrow 2, which is, are you guys familiar with the A Better Tomorrow series? They're all produced by Choi Hart. The first two are directed by John Woo. The third one's also directed by Choi Hart. But the second one is an absolute masterpiece of an action movie. Not only is it the best of the bunch of those, it's one of John Woo's best action movies, just period. Chow Yun-fat is the charmingest motherfucker in the entire world, and he pulls that out in spades in that. It's hilarious. It's heartbreaking. It's exciting. Yeah, check it out. If you like Hong Kong movies, if you like action movies, A Better Tomorrow 2, excellent.
Hell yeah.
I'm a huge fan of American John Woo, and his early stuff is a complete blind spot that I know I would love.
Hong Kong John Woo, where they don't have like OSHA and union protections for their stunt people. Yeah.
Isn't that the like awful part, is like, that the reason that they can do all of these awesome things is like, people are in danger.
There's no rules.
Yes. You watch these movies and you could pick out like, that guy went to the hospital. That guy might not have left the hospital. Went over to a friend's house last weekend, and we watched The Abomination. Kind of an infamous old, it's not shot on video, it's 16 millimeter, but like in the days of DIY low budget horror films. It's about this guy his crazy aunt is a religious fanatic, and she watches this TV preacher who prays to heal this condition that she had become convinced that she has, and she barfs up a tumor that climbs into the guy's mouth and takes him over, and then he barfs the tumor back out, and it grows into this giant monster that lives in the walls of his house, and he feeds people too. It's spectacular.
That sounds amazing.
My God. Yes.
And I highly recommend checking that one out. And then it's available on DVD or on Blu-ray through Visual Vengeance. Or is it Video Vengeance? I forget, one of the two. Anyway, it's a label that specializes in shot on video horror. They have some real wild stuff on there. And then I will wrap up with The Invincible Space Streaker. No one in this movie is invincible. Nothing has to do with outer space. There is some streaking by children. Are you guys? Sam's face.
I was literally like looking this movie up, and then you said that. I was like, what?
Are either of you familiar with Kamen Rider? Now, Casey mentioned Power Rangers earlier. It's similar, but from the 70s. It's not a Sentai thing. It's not a team show, but Kamen Rider is a show about a guy who, through biological experimentation, got turned into a grasshopper man that rides a motorcycle and does karate on monsters. Well, this is a Taiwanese knockoff of that, made for about $5, except the mad scientist turns children into both the monsters and the Kamen Rider analogs. At one point, a small child decides that he needs to stop the bad guy and disable his computer, so he just whips out his thing and pees on it to short circuit. Yeah, Taiwanese movies are at least as crazy as Hong Kong movies, if not more so sometimes.
Amazing.
I was going to say, we mentioned Troll 2 earlier, if speaking of people peeing on stuff to stop it. Yeah.
Except I'm pretty sure the peeing in that was achieved by some sort of effects trickery and maybe a bottle of water or something. This is just nope. Full on kid peeing on stuff. Yeah.
Oh, God.
I was going to say Troll 2 doesn't show shit. Like that.
Yeah. This would be another one to watch with some Turp Boys, I think.
Sounds like it.
That is amazing. I have literally added all 3 of these to my watch list.
Well, Space Streaker is on YouTube, and it's a god-awful VHS rip, but that's the only way to watch it.
I love watching god-awful VHS rips on YouTube. Casey will attest, there are so many times where I may have had a little Turp Boys, and I'll be texting him like, dude, I found like Prom Night 3 on YouTube uncut.
I feel like we've talked about that a bunch. I mean, we talked about it. That's how we both watched Trick or Treat for the first time.
The 86 one.
Yeah,
the Ozzy one. Yeah.
Yep. For the longest time, that's the only way I could find it. And then we both have a really crappy DVD of it. But now Screenbox and it's out on a 4K disc and all that. So yeah. Oh, amazing. Bryan, we got to have you back on so we can have these types of movies be a main
those type of movies as
sure.
Discussion.
That's
We're
awesome.
all happy to.
So, Casey, I see from the notes you haven't been doing much. What the hell, man?
I haven't been doing shit. Like, I have 2 movies on my recent watches. One of these, I won't say much about the one of them because we have a whole interview with the director, Ryan Kruger, on his sequel to Street Trash. And we do a whole deep dive. He gives us like an exclusive apparently about a scene that they shot about a dick flying through the air that they cut from the movie.
Oh, did they take out the penis keep away scene?
There's still a severed dick in this movie, but it's cut short, pun intended. But he talks about a deleted scene about the dick flying through the air.
And where the dick ends up.
And where the dick ends up. And I can't believe it is not in the movie because it sounds amazing. Yeah, this movie is a ton of fun. It's goopy.
It's wild. It's a
pretty wild-ass movie. If you're a fan of his first movie, Fried Barry, you're going to dig this because it has a very similar vibe. The guy who plays Fried Barry is also the best part of this movie. He has like an imaginary puppet friend with him throughout the entire movie, and it's so freaking weird and just out there, and they're my 2 favorite characters. I love them.
Yep.
I can't wait to see what Ryan does next because that dude can make some weird ass movies.
Yep. Oh yeah, Street Trash is the new Street Trash is its very own vibe. It's a banger.
And for people out there that hear it's a sequel and you haven't seen the original Street Trash, 1, go watch the original Street Trash because it rules. 2, you don't need to watch that movie to understand this one at all. There's like one line that talks about the original Street Trash.
Yeah.
And then the only other thing I watched, this has become like a Thanksgiving tradition of what I do every Thanksgiving morning. I wake up, have something really light to eat in the morning just to hold me over because I know we won't eat Thanksgiving until 2, 3 in the afternoon. But I'll sit there with like a bowl of cereal and I'll watch Thanksgiving. Like it's just become my annual Thanksgiving morning tradition. It's like watching A Christmas Story Christmas morning. I watch Thanksgiving every Thanksgiving morning.
I haven't seen it in a long time. I think I'm about due for a rewatch.
It's so good. I love it. It's exactly what I want out of a movie called Thanksgiving, made for less than $5,000 from a bunch of college students about a killer turkey who shouts a bunch of terrible one-liners, and the movie opens with a pair of boobs. Like, it's exactly what you want this movie to be, and so much more.
Have you seen the 3rd/2nd one?
I have, and I tried to put it. Full disclosure, I tried to put it on after watching this one. I made it about 10 minutes in again.
It's not very good. I love the concept, but it's just too long and too up its own ass.
Yeah, it's very it tries to be a bad movie versus the
Mhm.
first one where it knows it's a bad movie. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
Trying to make a bad movie is different than knowing you're making a bad movie
Yeah.
and just doing your best anyways. Like,
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
there's a difference between something like, well, like a Thanksgiving, and I'm gonna throw Sharknado under the bus here. And
It
Sharknado,
deserves it.
Yep.
like
Yep.
it's
Yep.
like yeah, Sharknado it's trying to be that movie, and because
Mhm.
of that, it lessens the fun. Yeah,
Yeah, the badness has to be sincere and come from a place of some sort of technical deficiency or incompetence on the filmmaker's part. If you're, yeah, if you say, and that's like I've talked about this several times on Attack of the Killer podcast. Some of the Hong Kong movies I describe sound like exactly that kind of stuff, but the weirdness is from a very sincere place of just trying to be entertaining. It's not this calculated, here's the formula for making a cult movie. If we do all this and wink at the audience, like, no, if you wink at the audience, we know you're winking at us and we don't like that.
yeah.
Stop it.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
it's kinda like it's kinda like the Deadpool movies, especially the new one where it's like, "Ha cameos," and it's like, just because you point out that superhero movies are a glut of cameos does not forgive you of the same sins, like,
Mhm.
you have
Can I
to
go on a
yeah.
rant on that quick? Because I know I haven't talked. I know we're not a superhero podcast, but there's a point. There's a part so I watched that finally. Deadpool and Wolverine. It's terrible. It's a bad movie. The thing that got me, and I can't understand if it's the joke or if it is just actual incompetence. But they have all these pop songs that play throughout the movie, and everybody's talking about the In Sync "Bye Bye Bye" opening where they have the credits and Deadpool's dancing to it.
Yeah.
It's so bad, and I can't tell if it's making fun of movies that have soundtracks that feel out of place, or if it's just a soundtrack that's out of place.
No, it's just trying too hard.
Okay, that's what
That's
I
that
thought.
whole movie. That's that
Fuck.
whole movie.
Okay, fuck that movie. All right, that's it. That's it for Doobie Doing. Go watch Thanksgiving instead of Deadpool and Wolverine. Don't give Disney your money. Anyway, Sam, what have you been Doobie Doing? You
I
gave Disney
actually
your money with a couple of these. God damn it,
What do you mean? What?
one of them, I guess.
When did I give Disney money?
You watched Alien Romulus.
Oh, yeah, I did. That's true. I always forget that Hulu and Fox and all that is now Disney. Anyways,
Sam's
yeah,
part
I
of the
did.
problem, people.
So, to start, I watched an independent movie called Oddity. Damian McCarthy. I have still not seen Caveat, which I have heard is
Same.
even more terrifying than this movie, and this movie was pretty fucking terrifying. I really liked Oddity. It was a revenge story about a medium who is pretty sure that there's something more to her sister's murder than what the police investigation uncovered a year ago. And there's a suspicious ex-husband or a suspicious like widowed husband who's already shacking up with a new lady, and you just know something's off. And he's a doctor and he works at a mental hospital. And there's all these like pieces that it sets up, and it's a little slow burn, but it's just this like weird revenge movie where the revenge is through like these haunted artifacts that she brings to this guy's house on just this like unexpected visit on the anniversary of her sister's death. And I don't know. I found this one so clever and just it's a little twisty. I've heard people be like, "Oh, it gets too twisty by the end." I'm like, I don't feel that. But I don't know, just there are a couple of just banger set pieces that have really stuck with me. The wooden man at the center of it all is terrifying. There's a scene with him in particular that's just like bone chilling, and I love that. So yeah, Oddity was great. Final Shot, wah! Final Shot's a banger. Um, love that. I did watch Alien Romulus, which is the Force Awakens of the Alien franchise, and I do not like the Force Awakens, but
Oh, that's too
I'm
bad.
a I'm a sucker for Alien Romulus. The
Yeah.
one thing that I'll say that keeps this from being like, oh my god, this movie is like this movie might not be in my top 10, and it's because it does the thing that I really hate, where it CGIs a dead actor.
Well, that's bad too. Yeah.
Oh, are you talking about the line reading?
Well,
The
both. I mean, just all of the, hey guys, remember this?
Yeah, the member berries on it get a little bit too much. There's a throwback to a line that just feels very out of place, and why is this even in here?
Like 3 or 4 of those.
Yeah.
But it's too bad because all the stuff around it is so good.
Yeah, there's a zero gravity sequence in a hallway that's just one of my favorite set pieces in the entire franchise. Like there's an elevator sequence where they're playing with gravity and stuff, and man, some of these like action horror set pieces are just insane, and then they keep going back to the CGI of a dead actor, and I'm just like, okay, let's move on from this. Like, why do we keep showing it? It doesn't look good every time you show it. Like,
especially since so much of the rest of it is all practical. Like there's,
yeah,
there are a couple of shots that just couldn't be done any other way than with CGI, but anywhere they could use a suit or a miniature spaceship, like probably 75% of that movie is practical effects.
Yep.
Even that thing, that video they watch where the rat kind of does that thing.
Oh yeah.
That's stop motion. Phil Tippett did that.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's amazing. And that explains why that scene looks amazing too. Like it's yeah. That rat scene is good. Yeah, so I loved Alien Romulus when it wasn't being quite as callbacky.
I wonder if those were shoehorned in by a producer somewhere.
It's kind of what it feels like, honestly. The
Disney.
Yeah. It seems like Fede Alvarez wouldn't have been quite that egregious with it. Like maybe stick one of the lines in or something, but yeah. And the CG of the dead actor is awful.
It's really bad.
Like it's worse than Peter Cushing in Rogue One.
It's jarring, and I'm like, how has this at least not been?
How has this not gotten better in the last 10 years or however long?
Yeah,
it's been?
I mean, come on. It's kind of insane. Although I will say, in the third act, he does the thing where it's like the characters think they're safe. They're getting ready to, like fly off into their safety, and then shit hits the fan again in a different way. And what Fede does to make that little like stinger of like, oh, but it's not over yet. Nightmare fuel. So good. That third act is really, and he's just putting ticking clocks on top of ticking clocks, and some of the plot mechanics are kind of like, okay, sure, but
anyone who has the balls to take Disney's money and then make a scene where a terrified woman lactates black slime.
Yep. It's yikes. Yeah, that whole third act is just it's insane. I cannot believe he pulled that off under the Disney umbrella. So
you guys are making me more excited to watch this.
Actually, I just watched that again maybe a week or two ago. I saw it in the theater, but then I watched it again on Hulu, and I actually liked it even more the second time. Like the terrible lines aren't so distracting when you know they're coming, and you can just like kind of brace for them and then ignore it and go back to enjoying the rest of the good movie.
Yeah. It's probably one of my favorite Alien movies, which I haven't watched either of the Ridley Scott prequels, which I know I need to.
No, you don't.
No.
So actually, Romulus sort of retcons all of that mess of continuity together in a way that makes Prometheus about 60% less stupid and allows you to pretend that Covenant was never even made, which is the way it should be. Covenant is a joyless pile of crap. Prometheus, I like because it feels like somebody found, going back to our first movie tonight, feels like somebody found an unproduced Claudio Fragasso script for an Italian Alien ripoff from like 1980 in the back of a drawer somewhere, and then got it produced with a Hollywood budget as a joke that no one got until it was too late and it was already in theaters. It's terrible, but it's entertainingly terrible.
Okay. That honestly makes me a little more excited to check out Prometheus.
Yeah.
I have heard Covenant is pretty cynical and rough.
Sucks ass. It's so bad.
Sam, we should do some sort of Alien episode because I have only ever seen the first 2 movies.
Ooh.
Granted, that's I've kind of been told to stop with that, but
here's another hot take for you. Alien 3 is my second favorite one.
Really? Okay.
Because grim, dark, miserable, hopeless, nobody wins ending.
Okay.
Hell yeah. All right. Grim, dark, hopeless, nobody wins ending. Speaking of, I've finally watched Terrifier 3. I've been vocal on this podcast about how I do not like the first Terrifier. It is not my vibe at all. It's not my thing. And I like Terrifier 2, but I thought it was entirely too long. And I just genuinely think that these movies keep improving because I actually liked Terrifier 3 quite a bit. I haven't been able to stop thinking about certain gore sequences from this movie. Art continues to just be like, Art's the best part of all of these movies, and he's the best part of Terrifier 3 easily. Plot wise, this is just as kind of all over the place as the rest of them, but you put a Santa costume on Art and you set everything with Christmas lights, and whether or not you're kind of running the same race again, it kind of imbues it with this like new freshness that I really loved. And there's a shower sequence in Terrifier 3 that I have not been able to stop thinking about. I'm like, Hitchcock walked so that Art could the guy in the ass with a chainsaw. Like, I just, man, what is this?
That should be a pull quote on the cover of the Blu-ray.
Damien Leone, if you're listening. Yeah, no, so yeah, Terrifier 3. Recommend it. So I rewatched for the first time since middle school the 90s classic Anaconda. This movie terrified me when I was in like 7th grade and I watched it a sleepover, like, because I had like a massive fear of snakes growing up. This movie was the scariest thing that I think I'd ever seen at that point. I watched most of it through my fingers. I did not have that same reaction revisiting this, mostly because I've kind of gotten over my fear of snakes.
But now you have a crippling fear of John Voight.
Yeah, always.
I think he had that before watching Anaconda.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Anaconda is fun. It's just kind of one of those movies that they don't make anymore, where they put a fuck ton of money behind this like B movie. That,
Yeah.
And I love that the 90s have so many of these creature features that when the snake is CG, it doesn't look great, but the practical snakes that they build for this movie and some of the practical effect work in this is fucking awesome. There's a shot of a body like from inside the snake of the like body going in, and it's the most like what
Owen Wilson,
like,
right?
I think so. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's my god. And I don't know. I had a blast with this movie. I wasn't expecting to like it quite as much as I did because I was like, this is probably not going to hold up at all. Kind of holds up. It kind of holds up. Like, I'd watch this with, like, I love the stuff like Lake Placid, like Tremors, like,
Deep
oh my
Rising.
God. So I have not seen that.
Ooh.
I need to
That's
watch
awesome.
Deep Rising.
Yeah.
Because my rewatch of Anaconda was actually brought on by me listening to the Evolution of Horror podcast, they just covered Anaconda and they covered it with Deep Rising. And I'd never even heard of Deep Rising. And that movie sounds insane.
Oh, it rocks, yeah.
So yeah. Anaconda. I guess that's what I'm ending on, because my next one is Street Trash, and I already talked about that. But yeah, Anaconda kind of ruled a lot harder than I remember. It's also one of those great 90s movies like Deep Blue Sea, where the people you expect to survive at the end are not the people who survive at the end. And you got kind of like, I don't know, the people that usually die first in these movies are the ones that come out on top in the end. And I don't know. That's kind of a nice 90s subversion
it's pretty
of the time.
subversive. I mean, even for today, that Ice Cube and Jennifer Lopez are the two survivors at the end of the
especially movie. Ice Cube, because his character in that is literally like side character comic relief. Yeah. So yeah, loved Anaconda. Thought it was a lot of fun. So all right, that's it. That's the show.
That's it.
We're gonna maybe make it under 2 hours. God, sorry, Brian.
Let me get the plugs in here quick. Like, let's see if we can do it in under 4 minutes. We can do this. First things first, you can subscribe to us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Please leave us a rating and review on any of those platforms and drop a comment on YouTube. Let us know your thoughts on Monster Dog and Prince of Darkness. Sam, where can they follow us on social media?
You can check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and TikTok. Just search Screams from the Basement. Our handles are all kind of different, but we are posting on all of those. And yeah, Casey.
And if
where else can they go if they want more of the podcast?
You already said my name. Like, what? I thought you were going to ask a question. And you did, because they can find us on Patreon if they want some more Screams nonsense, and you're going to get a whole lot of that. You can follow us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Screams from the Basement. The S in Screams is capitalized, and the B in Basement is capitalized as well. You'll get a monthly bonus episode. You'll get a monthly newsletter. You'll get weekly vlogs, and you'll also get written reviews. And you will get, hey, this is the first time we're ever showing this off, Sam. Give me a little warning when you do this. This is exclusive artwork that you will get by signing up to our Patreon, done by our very own Sam Lenz, where we look like the two kids from the beginning of Casper. And then last but not least, Sam, where can they pick up some exclusive Screams from the Basement merch if they want to represent the Screams brand out there?
Well, you can buy our merch at tpublic.com. Just search Screams from the Basement. We have a ton of cool stuff. I might be doing a cool Christmas themed design currently that will only be up for December.
We better get going on that if that's what you want.
I know. I will keep you posted. It might be a super exclusive, like 1 week thing, because I'm busy and it's taking me a while. So yeah, Brian, do you want to plug Attack of the Killer podcast and your incredible books again?
Yeah, if you want to hear more of me babbling about stuff no one cares about and annoying my co-host, you can come check us out on Attack of the Killer podcast. And you can find my books on Amazon, Beast from Haunted Cave, Killer Shrews, and Putting the Ground to Sleep and Other Weird Tales.
Hell yeah. Well,
Speaking of books, I got one more plug, Sam. Sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, because we probably add this to our notes for the episodes. We also have a sister podcast called The Bad Signal. It is a partnership between us, Screams from the Basement, and Bad Hand Books, where we interview authors from the Bad Hand Books catalog. Our latest episode was with Zoya Stage, who just released a children's horror novel, My Underslumber Bumblebeast. And next week is
Eric LaRocca. They Were Here Before Us, a novella in pieces.
Yes, so check out that and any previous episodes and future episodes of that at The Bad Signal. But again, Brian, thank you so much for joining us. We can't wait to have part 2 and for you to blow our minds with some weird ass double feature.
Thanks for having me on. This is a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
All right, Sam, get us that sign off.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody, and sweet screams.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.